All right, hello everybody. I'm Christine from Rushing River Apiaries, and this is part 2 tonight of the way that we are making splits this spring. I'd like to thank Murray for the great tip about turning my camera sideways, so now hopefully your screen on YouTube is full. And also for rightfully pointing out that a walkaway split, as I called our technique yesterday, is technically when you let the new hive or the nuc raise its own queen. So I don't know if this actually has a term. I called it a walkaway because instead of pulling frames, we just move things around, leave it overnight, come back, and it's pretty much made for us. So I don't know if this has a name. I changed the title of last night's, but this is part 2, day 2 of kind of the 3-day process of making splits. So what I'm going to be doing tonight is, if you watched yesterday, you will know that I have all of our capped brood down here. We like to keep 3 solid frames of capped brood. That's what's going to grow back into a nice productive colony for us for the summer. In this box, I packed any young brood, eggs, young larvae. Maybe if I didn't fill it with eggs and larvae, there would be a couple food frames in there. And then up here, I would pack any open honey and blank frames, because this will become my new top box, and everything in this middle box is what I'll be taking as splits today to make nucs. If I look sore and tired, it's because I have been at this all day. It started to rain and I went inside and cracked open a celebratory Sherwood beer, and then my husband called and said, "The queens are here, get your ass out there, we need those splits." So here I am. But I am glad to be doing part 2 and not scared off by the rain. So, what we want our splits to look like is, we do 5 frame nucs. We want 3 of those frames to have brood on them, to be majority full of brood. And it should be brood of all developmental stages. So some capped, some larvae, some eggs. Now, we also hold on to our nucs for a full 10 days after we put the queen in. So what I'm pulling from this hive is mostly young right now, because I know that in 10 days time that will be capped brood in that nuc. So you need to consider the timing, especially if you're selling nucs, the timing that you're removing the frames from your hive and when the customer will be picking them up. If it's for yourself, both the mother hive, the parent hive that will be left behind, and the nuc can have a little bit more of that mixture in it, and you might want a bit more of that mixture in it. So 3 of the frames are going to have brood on them. 1 frame is going to be drawn comb but empty, and that's space for the queen to keep laying so that she can be productive while she's waiting in the nuc. And then the other frame is going to be a food frame. And with a food frame, you want to look for something that has both nectar or honey and pollen in it. So you can see in this one that I've chosen an old honey frame. It has some leftover honey, but then the bees have nicely backfilled all of the open space with fresh pollen from this year. So this is a nice food frame to sustain this nuc until they develop a few foragers of their own that can go out collecting for them. Now, because it is raining, I'm actually going to leave the hive together a little more than I normally would. So I'm going to take our attic off here. But then, because I know I don't need anything in this box, I'm actually just going to leave the lid on it and take the whole thing off here and get right down into what I'm looking for, because I don't need to disturb them at all. Now, I already have my boxes set up with the food frame on one side and the blank or the empty comb on the other side. My 3 brood frames are going to go in the middle of that. I'm going to remove the blank just so that I have space to get them in there and I'm not rolling any bees as I push them in, but that'll go right back into that outside position beside all the brood. Okay, now also, because we gave them a day to equalize through the queen excluder, all of the nurse bees we know are already up here, which is fantastic, because one of the more disturbing to the bees, parts of taking a split on day 1 is that usually, to be safe, you take your brood frames and then you need to take a few shakes to ensure that you have enough nurse bees. And I'm not going to do that shaking because I know that those nurse bees will have traveled up to be on those brood frames. This box is actually just packed right now because there is so much open brood in it, and that's where the bees know that they need to be. This makes this a really quick and easy job to have done all that organization yesterday. I don't need to look for the queen. All I'm doing is quickly scanning them and kind of making some choices about which nuke they're going to go into. I might even get 3 out of this. I think I'm going to. Fantastic. There we go. So in this one, I'll stick my blank back in there and close this one up, and that nuke is ready for a queen tomorrow. We actually transfer all of these into wooden nuke boxes for their kind of resting period or their observation period or whatever you want to call it. So this will go to another yard where it'll go into a wooden nuke box and receive a queen tomorrow. Now, a couple things for the backyard keepers. If you're doing this for yourself, you're just expanding your operation a little bit, or maybe you're just doing 1 or 2 nukes to sell, and you may not have another yard to move them to. That's okay. The reason that we move them is so that if there are any flying bees in these nukes, they don't fly out in the morning and decide to go back to their original hive when they return, because they've oriented to that original hive. So by moving them a great enough distance, we can ensure that they won't fly back to the original hive. If you can't do that, then the next best thing to do is to leave them locked in for a full 24 hours. So obviously they need to breathe. I don't mean locked in as in tape up the whole thing so that no air can enter and exit, but you do want to close all the entrances so that you don't have flyers for that 24-hour period. Then you can go out and open them up, and they should reorient to their new home. The other thing that you might want to do if this is for your own operation is wait a full 24 hours before putting your queen in. That gives them time to kind of lose the pheromone from their own queen, and they'll be more likely to accept that new queen. Although this method in itself, because all of these are nice young nurse bees in this box, this tends to help with queen acceptance anyway. But to be on the safe side, wait the 24 hours before you put your queen in as well. I think I'm going to end this here right now because I need to run around and get another box for the rest of these. But I've kind of gone through how we set up our nuke boxes. This was day 2, so if this is the first video you've watched, it might be worthwhile to go back and watch part 1, which shows how I organized these boxes yesterday. And tomorrow I will be back to show how we insert a queen. All right, thanks for watching.